Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today I want to talk about AMD's fluid motion frames again. I don't think a lot of people quite understand just how useful of a tool this is. I've been in this preview program now since it launched, and I've been testing this on a lot of different games. Like I was just playing RoboCop Rogue City tonight using this, utilizing this technology. Is what this is it's a frame generation. It's baked right into the AMD drivers. It's a preview driver right now. It's scheduled to launch sometime early next year. And when the first iteration that came out, it was, you would pan the camera and you'd get like some camera wobble. You'd get like you'd get some instability in the image for the most part. But since they updated it again, and added HDR support to it and made it a lot more stable, like significantly more stable, I've noticed that it seems to work very well with Unreal Engine 5 games. When I've played Remnant 2 with it, when I've played RoboCop with it, and what was the other one? Lords of the Fallen. All of these games that are utilizing well, I would say Immortals of Avium, but that already has FSR2 and frame generation, so you can just use that you can use that with pretty much any card. But the thing behind fluid motion frames, and I also want to talk, we're not just going to talk about fluid motion frames, we're going to talk about FSR, we're going to talk about DLSS, we're going to talk about all of these tools that are, I figure them as, like console tools, like things that like the console space would use to help provide better image quality and stuff like that. Well, here's the thing, and this is the way I see it now after, a significant amount of time utilizing these tools, playing around with them, getting to know how they work, how they feel. When it comes to AMD's Adrenalin software, you have multiple different tools at your disposal. Just by turning on HYPR-RX, you get the ability to use, RSR if you want to use that. Certain games that looks pretty good. Any game that has like straight edges or anything like that, if you're like in a city or something like that, it looks incredible. It sharpens everything up. It makes everything look a lot nicer, and you're like, wow, man. For the most part, I don't necessarily, and I was, dude, when I first started this channel, I was so against checkerboard rendering and all of that stuff due to the fact that, I'd bought a PS4 Pro and I bought an Xbox One X, and the Xbox One X looks significantly better on a 4K screen, and the PlayStation 5, had like blurry, fuzzy textures. But you know what? As I've seen like this technology grow and evolve and get significantly better, like DLSS is absolutely awesome. It looks incredible. It sharpens everything up. It makes the image quality look better. You're able to place your GPU from NVIDIA in a much higher tier just by utilizing that. Most of the time you can get to the next resolution up at 60 frames per second. I was starting to get a little snobby with my 3080 when I was like, whoa, man, I can't even do this anymore. And still, hang on to them higher settings and stuff like that. And that did give me a little bit of anxiety, and I was like, man, should I really switch over to AMD, or should I just shell out more money for another NVIDIA card? And dude, I'm the kind of person that likes to try new things, and I'm so grateful I decided to try AMD because I like it. I like the overall AMD experience. It may not be better. It might not be, better than like a 4080 or a 4090. And I don't think I've ever really claimed that to be the case. I've just said that, look, man, the experience, in my opinion, from my own playing around with this stuff and getting in there, I do feel like the experience the AMD Adrenalin software and AMD offers in general is a lot more coherent and easier, so much easier for the average gamer that's not really well versed in like the PC space to be able to get in there, to be able to utilize these tools, to be able to tweak their heart's content to make their games function just as they would like them to. So One thing that I want to say, you know, before we get into like the upscalers and all of this stuff is make sure you buy a GPU that is good for the resolution that you want. If you are going to get a 1440p card, make sure you get, you know, like your 7700 XT, your 7800 XT, your 4070 Ti, your 4070. Those are all going to be pretty dang decent 1440p graphics cards this generation. If you're going for 4K, yes, you're going to want a 7900 XT is like your entry level, basically your 7700 XT, you know, for 1440p, or your 7900 XTX, or your 4080, which is basically like a super high end. Well, your 7900 XT and your 4080, those are going to be like your super high end 1440p cards with higher frame rates and higher visual quality and just have the punch to knock that out of the park. And your entry level 4K. If you want a 4K card, you're going to go with the 7900 XTX or the 4090, and that's non-negotiable. 1080p is basically everything under that. Your 3060 or your 4060 Ti, your 7600 XT. Those are the cards that you're going to want for like 1080p. Maybe even your 4070 or your 7700 XT. Those two are going to blur the line for 1080p. And this is just the simplest way I know how to say it. Those are going to blur the line for a really high refresh rate for 1080p, as well as be able to, you know, give you entry level 1440p on those cards. So that's definitely something to think about. But I do recommend, you know, if you buy a card, you buy a card for the resolution that you have, you know, like your 1440p monitor, your 1080p monitor, your 4K TV, your 4K monitor. You buy the corresponding card for that so that you can get the best image quality that you can get, because that's important. That is important. But now, when you factor in, you know, things like frame generation, when you factor in things like FSR, when you factor in, you know, DLSS or XESS, all of those right there, those are going to help you. I look at it as the cherry on top in terms of being able to, like, say you're playing a game. Say you've waited a long time for this game to come out, and you put it in there, and the game is just so demanding, and you're like, gosh dang it, man, I only get like 55 frames or something. Like say you're 55 frames at your max settings and you just want to play that game at just 60 or just above or whatever, you know what I mean? And then you flip on your DLSS, or you flip on your FSR, or you flip on, you know, your XESS or something to try to push you over that limit so that you can get that. Because let's face it, the majority of the games, and this is from personal testing, the majority of the games that you're going to buy when you have your new graphics card are going to give you at least, they're going to give you a dang good experience on your resolution for that card, for whatever card you chose. If you picked a 1440p card, obviously there's different tiers for 1440p, not so many for 4K. You've got entry level and then you've got 4K cards, but 4K is always going to be your most demanding. So if you're going for 4K, you can definitely, you can 100% guarantee that no matter what card you get, you are going to be utilizing either DLSS or FSR or whatever. Like 4K is still very demanding, and you are going to have to utilize those most of the time to get a better experience. Once you start going down the stack in resolutions, then it gets a little bit more like, yeah, you might get a 4060 that's going to be able to push, you know, 1440p, or even in some games, like some older games, you might even get that thing to run at 4K and give you 60 FPS. So I mean, depending on how old the game is, your lower entry cards are going to be able to push that a lot higher than what, you know, it's going to be able to push the newer games. So you actually you're going to have to like, you're going to have to accept that and kind of like work that into however you're going about buying your card. When it comes to upscalers though, I've actually gotten to the point to where I mainly use them only on 4K. I usually only use them on 4K. Every once in a while, you know, when I'm making a video or something, I will put out, you know, and this is for the people that are like trying to get me with gotchas, like, yeah, you just showed us that at 1440p with FSR. Sometimes I will make videos with FSR on for 1440p and all of that stuff, usually when those are Unreal Engine 5 games, kind of testing the waters to see how it's going to run or whatever. But when it comes to being able to utilize these upscalers to and your frame generation and stuff like that. Now, frame generation is not going to be good for every game, but frame generation can significantly enhance your experience from the DX11 and DX12 games using the AMD's fluid motion frames. This is absolutely really cool technology. Now, I was like with everybody else on the fence about the whole frame generation from NVIDIA and all of that, and I'm convinced now that in some situations it can significantly improve your experience. So I'm okay with that. I have utilized it on almost every new game I've bought since I've played around with this. I've went back and tested older games. It's able to give me a significantly better experience playing The Witcher 3 with all the ray tracing and everything on. It's much more playable now. And it's a lot more stable now that they've updated it again. So I do think that is a very good tool to be able to keep in your toolbox. You are going to want to make sure you have 60, 70 FPS before you utilize that, though. That just the higher the frame rate, the higher the base frame rate, the more stable the overall experience is going to be. If you're lower than that, as long as you're running in a straight line, it'll be pretty safe or pretty stable. But if you start turning the camera and stuff like that, then you're going to start to notice some of the like the image quality does kind of break up a little more. It's not unusable, but you will notice more impurities in your overall gaming experience if you do not have a higher frame rate for that experience out of the gate. Like, you're going to want a higher frame rate. Yes, it does work good with shooters. First-person shooters, it does work good. I was playing RoboCop, just like I said, didn't have any problems with that. Was doing just fine. It does work well with racing games. I've used it with WRC Generations. I've used it now with EA Sports WRC. I've used it with Forza Motorsport. I've used it with a lot of different racing games, motorcycle racing games like TT Isle of Man 3, Ride 5. I've utilized this technology on countless games. Now, I haven't made videos for every single one of them, but I have been making videos when I think it's impertinent, when I think that it would show you something different, or maybe if it's a game that I think that somebody might watch, then I use it and I'll show you guys how it looks like. I'm actually pretty happy with that technology. And to me, what that says is like, the only and this is why I'm like softening to the whole thing right now. I'm going to tell you guys right now why I'm softening up to the use of FSR and DLSS and frame generation and all of these other tools and techniques that we're able to use, is because graphics cards are going to get more powerful, but they're going to get significantly more expensive with every generation that comes out now, because we're no longer chasing, we're now chasing 4K in terms of being able to have the power for 4K with ray tracing and with all of these other new technologies and techniques that are coming out to better the visuals for our games. We're chasing that now. Yeah, we're still going to get our 1440p cards. We're still going to get our 1080p cards. And yeah, they're obviously going to get, the somewhat double performance or whatever. But I beg to differ. Like, I don't feel like we're seeing double the performance, but we are seeing almost double the cost of these GPUs going up. Like, we are definitely seeing that, but we're not seeing like gen on gen double performance. I mean, maybe in some games we are, but not in every single game. Like, we're lucky to get anywhere from a 6% to a 30%, maybe even up to 40%, 50% even if we're using, frame generation or DLSS, or we're using FSR. Then we're seeing that, but in pure rasterized, we're not seeing that much of an upgrade for how much the cost of these GPUs are going up. Like, we're getting to a point where it's like we're starting to hit a wall in terms of how much power they can actually, and the size of these things, man. The 4090 is absolutely massive. My 7900 XT is absolutely massive. These things are getting bigger, and they're they're costing more to run. They're producing more heat. All of that stuff, you know, that kind of just ties into like, look, man, if we utilize the tools that are available to us on our respected GPUs, we can push these things a lot farther, and we can get absolutely beautiful image quality. I've always been the kind of gamer that's like, oh my gosh, man, I gotta have my visuals and stuff. Like, I've always been that kind of gamer, and that's why, like, sometimes when I get a game, you know, like EA's WRC, and it comes out and I look at it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm disgusted with the visuals, because I'm like, what the freak, man? I was playing the Kiloton racing games and they look better. Like, I still get those issues every once in a while where I'm just like not disgusted, but disappointed. That's pretty rough, man. Like, EA Sports WRC is not terrible. I do love that game, and I am starting to come around to it. But my gosh, man, like, it felt like such a step down in visuals that, like, even I showed my negativity toward that game. And I do it every once in a while when I'm like super hyped for a game and it comes out. Like, I am super overcritical of that experience. I am, and it's not fair to the developers and everything else, because I am pretty critical. But then I could be like, oh yeah, well, Golem looks all right. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, on certain games that I'm not like super hyped for, it doesn't necessarily matter as much as it does when it's something that I'm like super hyped up about. Yeah, then I show my little negativity, and I throw cheap shots at them like I was over on Twitter and stuff, and I do feel bad about that. I do feel bad about how I represented EA Sports WRC. I should have been more professional about that, like I am with a lot of other games. But I was bitter about it. But I am coming around to it. I'm really enjoying that game. I've got almost 20 hours already into it. And I'm enjoying it. Like, it is fun. It is delivering the rally experience that I want. Just not every stage is. Well, I'm getting off track now, but let's get back to this. Upscalers. Upscalers are pretty much the future. They aren't going anywhere, and I do feel like as time goes on, they're going to continue to grow, and they're going to get better, and they are going to get to a point where we're not even going to be able to tell the difference between 4K native and, you know, DLSS or FSR or any of these things. And, you know, one more point, you know, that I want to make, you know, when it pertains to like DLSS, yes, DLSS looks incredible. It does. But FSR2, when done right, it looks very, very good. Like, I can barely tell sometimes on a lot of these games, like, unless I'm looking for something, like looking for it and trying to point it out and trying to find something negative about FSR, that's the only way I can see things that I'm like, oh boy, that doesn't look very good, or something like that. Because most of the time, and for most of what I've seen, I've been very happy with the overall image quality that FSR2 has provided in my gaming experience. Just like I like DLSS. I thought DLSS was awesome. XeSS, I've been able to utilize that on both the NVIDIA graphics card as well as the AMD card, so you're able to use that. But I do still recommend the AMD experience over the NVIDIA experience for newcomers to the PC space. I just do. I've found it significantly more productive, like being able to actually use the card and being able to utilize the features of the card. I found it far easier. I found it more intuitive. It just like, oh, that user experience is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like, NVIDIA could really use like a software like AMD's Adrenaline software. They could definitely use that, and it would completely change the user experience for people like me that you know, don't really like know. I mean, I know about PC, but I didn't come into it like knowing like everything. And like I haven't been doing this for 100 years. I've been doing it for like 2.5 years now, or like 2 years. I've been playing around with PC gaming, man. Like I know how to run a PC and I know how to build a PC and I know how to do all of that. But when it comes to like the intricate, like getting in there and like setting up a GPU, like for Nvidia or AMD or anything like that, that was a challenge. And I can't really sit here and watch a whole bunch of videos all day to learn how to use my GPU, you know. But the AMD experience has been significantly better in terms of, you know, being able to utilize more of the card's features than I was ever able to find on the Nvidia platform. Because the Nvidia platform, you get in there and you look at and you get in there and you look at the control panel, and it looks like an old Windows thing, and you're just like, okay, well, what does this do? But when you get in to the Adrenaline software, it's almost like it's got easier terms to understand. You've got like big pictures and big windows and all kinds of stuff. You know, just a more organized looking, you know, software suite, and it looks cool. It looks new. It looks fresh. It's got, you know, different tabs, whatever you can get in there. It's got little asterisks, you know, that you can read what each feature does. So yeah, things like that, they do matter when it comes to user experience. They absolutely matter, and I do think AMD 100% hit the nail on the head with that. And not only that, like my 7900 XT has 100% delivered a solid gaming experience. Like I said before, man, on the NVIDIA graphics cards, I wasn't ready to, like, I'm not even going to lie. I had anxiety a lot when I would buy new games because I had so many of them that were just unplayable at launch. Whereas I'm not getting anywhere close to that level of instability on this 7900 XT. Like, not even close. I mean, Forza Motorsport's been a little bit rough. EA Sports, WRC had shader compilation stutter. They're going to fix that tomorrow, but it was starting to go. I mean, it was starting to go away the more and more I drive these tracks. So, I mean, that's not really that big of a deal anymore. And it wasn't that bad. Like, it wasn't super intrusive like I was getting with the NVIDIA graphics card every time I'd play a new game and I'd get that stutter or whatever. And I'm able to run things at, you know, higher resolution. I'm able to run things at higher frame rate. The higher the frame rate, the better the experience feels. It just does. And you know, I want people to know, like, I want to set the record straight. Like, when it comes to AMD, they might have done whatever in the past, just like NVIDIA has done whatever in the past. But AMD is a very good substitute if, like, you don't want to spend all that money for an NVIDIA product and you just want something that you can game on. I 100% recommend AMD products. I think they are absolutely incredible. I don't think they get enough recognition for the products that they do make. And, you know, the overall performance and quality versus price and all of that stuff, I think it is a very, very, very attractive offer from what for what AMD has to offer. Like, I absolutely love this AMD 7900 XT card. And it will be kind of sad if they don't put out one, you know, like a high-end graphics card next generation. But with frame generation, FSR2, all of these other tools that are coming to this card, like, it might not matter. Like, it might not matter. Like, I might be set for a whole nother generation. Like, who knows? Like, we'll find out. But I think that the overall performance, if the overall performance that I'm getting right now continues throughout the rest of this console generation, I would be satisfied with that. Like, I don't feel any desire to run out and buy a new card, because when I'm pushing 1440p with this card, like, I'm well over 100 frames a second. If I utilize FSR, I'm like well over 100 frames per second at 1440p. If I'm using, you know, 4K, and I'm, like, obviously, you know, most of the time I have to utilize, you know, FSR or whatever, at least, especially on some of these newer games like the UE5 games and stuff. But if I'm on there and I'm able to use FSR to get over 60 frames a second at 4K, that is 100% okay with me. Like, I'm okay with that for the rest of this generation. And, you know, I think that most people would be. Like, if you're looking for, you know, the highest frame rate and all of that stuff, like, I don't even know how to help you. I don't know if there's even something out there that could consistently hit that type of that level of gaming experience without these tools. So at the end of the day, when it comes to all of these tools, I'm 100% on board with them. I like what they're doing. It does enhance my gaming experience, you know, pretty dang good. And I think that as time goes and it gets better, I think that a lot more gamers are going to start coming around to it, because a lot of these games are launching with in the little notes for recommended specs, they are utilizing these technologies. So I know it's not ideal for everybody to be like, yeah, I'm just going to accept it. And they're, you know, because it does kind of suck. You know, we're spending this much money. We should be getting way more power. But the way I look at it is these graphics cards are only going to continue to get more expensive because they have to get bigger. They're going to need more power. All of this stuff, that's the only way to go to make them more powerful. So I do think that we're at a crossroads literally right now to where the price is going to keep going up. But I'm grateful that we have these features so that we can still enjoy our games and have, you know, beautiful images and everything still look pretty good. So, all right, my friends, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, man. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.